Senator Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm just so grateful for this panel and for the conversation that has been had today. I have always had this reverence for the American justice system, its ideals and its values. And it's unique, the principles we put forward when you travel the world and see how the rights and protections that our founders believed in, and this simple ideal that justice should be a place where it's balanced, where justice is blind. And what a lot of my career has been about, living in a low-income Black and brown community, is seeing, I think what Brian Stevenson once said, that unfortunately the reality is you get better justice in America if you are rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. And then comes the areas of employment law and seeing how the power of corporations has grown so dramatically. I'm often stunned at the levels of lobbyists that are down here advocating and fighting for things that will protect corporate power, but yet many of the people who are workers are losing a lot of their access to a balanced and a fair system. The work that's been done in this space has been extraordinary. And Ms. Carlson, you are heroic in my office, but more than that, you and the work that colleagues of mine have done for what now has been 2 years, ending forced arbitration for sexual assault, has transformed the culture of our country. And I think that's really important, this idea of what actually changes cultures in workplaces, cultures that are toxic, cultures that are demeaning, cultures that are breaking laws, but more important, violating our values of human decency. And now that you've opened that up and been able to find ways, not just to get individual justice, but to expose these cultures to the light, to the disinfectant power of light, is extraordinary. And so what might be justice for one person in a discrimination suit actually affects millions of people in terms of what is a healthy culture. And all of the naysayers and the doomsayers who said that this was gonna result in clogging up courts and exorbitant costs and dragging out disputes, is actually just not true. Corporations will find it cheaper to create cultures that are nourishing and nurturing, not just to their bottom line, but to the employees that there. It's far cheaper to go that direction and correcting those cultures and allowing them to continue. And so this, to me, has been really exciting to see this change. But Ms. Carlson, what has really made you people in my office feel such gratitude, including myself, is the fact that you've said basically that you're not going to stop. I will not stop, you said, until we achieve the same rights for workers who have faced discrimination based on race, age, disability, gender, and sexual orientation. In other words, forget all these lines, race, age. It's just justice. It's a matter of having justice. And Ms. Gillis was talking about the examples of race discrimination that are so similar to the stories of discrimination in other areas, are stunning to me. And I could go through them. You brought up the NFL example. The stories I've heard from Tesla, for example, from Black workers have been shocking, should shock everybody who believes in basic virtues and basic human decency. And so I just, Ms. Carlson, if you could just, why is this so passionate for you, having achieved such an incredible change, to still be in the trenches working to make sure it's affecting all workers?
Thank you so much, Senator Booker. I believe because I don't believe that forced arbitration was ever supposed to be used to adjudicate human rights violations. It was for small business disputes, and it was to unclog the court systems. For, if I knocked over my neighbor's fence and we're talking about $300, that's, let's go to arbitration, right? Why should we clog the courts? But not when somebody's racially discriminated against, not when somebody's sexually assaulted at work or let go like Joanne because she happened to be seasoned, right? And you brought up a really interesting point that I just also want to echo, which is part of my hope in passing such landmark legislation was that it would actually change the culture as well. And you know why that happens? Because the power pendulum is like this when you have forced arbitration. Here's the company and here's the employee. But if you give this person voice, and this person knows now, and so does this person, that you can't be forced into silence with forced arbitration, the behavior may also stop. And that, to me, is the most gratifying part of this whole experience, is knowing that we might actually start to change culture as well as changing laws. And I've said this before, and it's a very profound statement. Changing culture in the most hyper-political time of our generation is more difficult than passing bipartisan legislation.
And Ms. Grace, I want to end with a question with you, but Ms. Carlson, just to say to you, the stories of humiliation and real financial catastrophe that has happened from people who've been discriminated against is so agonizing to know that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans still dealing with this. And for us as a Senate to parse out, well, this time we'll deal with age, this time we'll deal with, as opposed to everything, is astonishing to me. But Ms. Grace, I was hoping you can just end for a second and just say, what would it have meant to you to have the choice to decide whether to go into arbitration or have your day in court? And I'll when she finishes, I will yield.
Well, first of all, I think that having worked as long as I did in a particular field, you develop a real
Could you
trust.
make sure your microphone is turned on in front of you? Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think if you work in a field as long as I have in one field, you develop a trust in your corporation, in your organization, that they will do right by you because you've given your whole life to them. And when you find out that that's not the case, then I think I want to have a right to say to other older Americans, you got to watch your own back. You got to make sure that they're not going to do the same thing to you that they have done to me. And that of just blinding me, of not allowing me to speak. Because I think that that employees everywhere, older Americans that deserve the right to vote, they deserve the right to make their own, to have their own representative or to give their voice. I can't do it because we're older, and we can't, honestly, we just can't do it ourselves. We need to have the help. That's when they offer arbitration. And arbitration is just a means not to change anything, but to hide everything. It's a form of secrecy to me that shouldn't have to exist in our country, because if there's fairness on behalf of the corporation to the employer and to the employee, as I've been faithful to them, why would they do that to me? They wouldn't. It would just be a more even, as Gretchen said, it would be an even play. But if we're down here and they just decide at their whim, we're going to get rid of her for somebody younger, I can understand that they might think it's more efficient to have somebody that they can pay $25 to an hour instead of $38 an hour. But particularly in fields like nursing, you get what you pay for. And the older person often has the wisdom, the knowledge that a younger person can't possibly have yet. It takes years of experience to develop that. And what we know directly reflects to our patients and their safety and their health. So we affect a lot of things just as a nurse. And you're telling me that I'm just going to get rid of you because we have somebody younger, somebody that we know that we want to slide in here, and I don't have a voice to say, wait a minute, this isn't fair, and other people seem to know it's not fair. This is America. My parents were both World War II veterans. They taught me to work hard. They taught me everything about America was wonderful. My mother was an immigrant from Russia, Poland. So to say now that the justice system can just tie our hands behind our back and we're not allowed to speak and they take our voice away, to me, that's not America anymore. And I just want to see that come back. And if we can start as they started with sexual harassment, I think older Americans, they've given their lives for this country, for their community, for their corporations, and they deserve just to have an even playing field back.
Thank you, Ms. Grace.